Welcome to Trust AI Partners, where we dive into the bleeding edge of tech, automation, and AI innovation. I'm your host, Jim Hoover, and today we're tackling the silent killer of efficiency in construction and infrastructure sales, outdated CRMs. If you're looking to scale revenue, slash costs, and unlock new levels, stay tuned and connect with us for a free consultation. My guest today is an unstoppable force in both tech and sustainable sectors. Jay Connolly is the chairman and CEO of Ripple Nami, a groundbreaking AI-driven data visualization company connecting billions of underserved people around the globe. From driving $3 billion in M&A activity to leading award-winning platforms that support Africa's climate economy, Jay's work bridges innovation with impact. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, no problem. I wanted to get started with a little bit about, first of all, let's start with the high level overview. What's the size and scale of Ripple Nami?
So we've worked now a decade in Africa exclusively, and we are in we're about 30 countries. So we do a lot of big government data aggregation and solve a lot of different problems.
And how many employees are there?
You know, it ebbs and flows, and we're a private company. We don't talk about that. But at any
Okay.
point, we can have over 100 or under 100, depending on implementation. And we
Okay.
only hire within each country that we're in.
Got it. And is this nonprofit, for profit, if you're comfortable sharing?
Yes, we're a for-profit Delaware C Corp.
Okay, got it. And so leading to the next question here, give us a peek into your day to day. How are you leading innovation on the front lines? What does that look like?
I just had a meeting about this yesterday. So we're constantly looking for the best and greatest technology because what we do is we go into a country and we pull all their government data together. So every different department, every different ministry, every different agency, we pull all that data in, and that is disparate data silos. Can you imagine that happening in the US? It just would never even occur to somebody to do it. But once you pull that data in, everybody's got a little bit of rich data about whatever subject we're trying to solve for. And so we're always looking what is the best and greatest data technology that we can pull in that data. We have to normalize it. We have to match it. We then analyze it using AI. Then we visualize it using data visualization. We'll use blockchain when we need to keep it super secure. And then we solve the problem, right? So whatever is the latest, greatest. So yesterday I was at a meeting and we're talking about AI agents. I don't know if the crowd's ready for that, but this agent, you can train it to do everything for you. Your workflow can be like you just wake up in the morning and you turn on your AI agent and it can do your day. So we're getting ready to do a lot of webinars on this. So we encourage people to listen out now. If actually when you see on ChatGPT, there now is a spot to add your agent. So a new terminology for people.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You had mentioned blockchain in there, and
Mhm.
I was curious how you're leveraging blockchain in some of the interactions that you're involved with today.
Yeah, so we use it very sparingly. I'm not a giant fan of it, but it is what's nice about it. We can do the permission based on the data. So look, if we pull in all the government's data and let's say the Ministry of Finance needs data and the Ministry of Local Governments need data, they don't necessarily need to look at the same data set. So we can
Hmm.
permission out which data set they get. And you can do that a million different other ways, but I find it expensive, kind of slow. There'll be more and more good technology coming about, but that is what it's used for now. I'll tell you in climate, they're trying to prove that if you put the data in blockchain and then you can trace it all the way through to the end, it's secure and it's transparent. I beg to differ. I think if you put crap in as data and it's just going to track crap out. So
Hmm.
it's got to be really that data going in has to be really, really clean.
Have you heard, Jay, that there is? I'm trying to remember the name of the company. Uh, it it might not be timestamp but time stamping is the main feature of the business or the use case of the business, leveraging
Mm.
blockchain, where they're using this in presidential elections. Have you heard about
I have
this?
I have not, but look, we can timestamp everything in a database. So again, I find blockchain, it has its uses. I just don't feel that it's the end all to be all. I think there's going to be greater and better technologies coming up the pipe.
Sure.
But
Okay.
I have not heard about that.
Okay. Yeah, I know they were. I think they're testing this in some countries in Central America, South America, where basically they can validate each vote retroactively with location, bureau, voting office, group of people who approve that batch of votes, just with the intention to eliminate corruption and election fraud and things of that nature. So we'll see where it
Yeah.
goes. I just thought it
We'll
was
see where it
interesting.
goes.
Yeah.
You know, in Africa, they you put your thumb or your finger in ink, and that's how you know you voted. People know you voted.
Yeah.
Purple ink. So
Is it effective? Does it work?
it is effective, yeah. Because if you already have a purple thumb, you're not going to go vote again. So
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Shifting over to prospect targeting, since I'm curious how this fits into your business. When you look at objectives that you're looking to execute over whatever time horizon that you have in place for these objectives, what are the top line objectives? What are you going after, and how do you get there? So in other words, like maybe another way to ask the question is, if we're looking back 1 year from today, how do you measure success?
we're still alive. No. Uh, what we look for is customer success stories, right? So we're all about helping African countries become sovereign nations. So that means what? That means helping them increase. Right now, one of the big things we're doing is helping them increase their tax revenue. In order to and increase your tax revenue, you need to get tax compliance. And that then leads to a greater middle income, and you can pay off debt and you can become sovereign. So we look at year over year or baseline over year success as to, how much have we grown the tax revenue? It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
When there is, it depends on what we're about person, place, or thing. We don't care what it is, the data we're pulling in to solve for the problem. We've done livestock traceability, and the whole goal was to get pastoral farmers micro lending, but they needed to know who they were and how many cows. So we put that whole ecosystem together in an app, and then we could see how many micro loans. So each, each project is different because there's a different goal. And our whole goal is, have we done better than we did the last year based upon revenue metrics?
And so when you're evaluating that increased level of tax compliance and revenues, is that all public information, or does the client have to provide that?
The client provides it, but they do tax compliance and taxes in Africa are a very big deal. And I'll tell you what happens. The Minister of Finance walks out with a red briefcase each and every year with the budget and sits there and reads the budget to everybody, and it's televised. Can you imagine our government doing this? They couldn't even carry the budget in a briefcase.
Yeah.
So it's very transparent as to, here's our budget, here's what we're going to spend the money on. And then the tax authority comes out and does the same thing. They come out and say, okay, here's our results. And they have an annual report and they push it out. So it is a transparent system, but we also know, we know every quarter what's happening.
And so I'm curious, there are how many different countries that you're dealing with
Yeah,
over
let
in?
me just set the
Yeah.
landscape here. So Africa, there's 1.5 billion people that live
Uh-huh.
on the continent among 54 countries.
Okay.
60% of that population are subsistence farmers, and the average person lives on $1 a day. They have the youngest population. They have 50% of their population is under 16 years old. So by 2030, Africa will have the largest workforce in the world.
Hmm.
So we saw that 10 years ago, and we thought, you know what? Because of the adoption of cell phones, they have a propensity of data, unbelievable amounts of data. And I think globally, we use between 1% and 3% of the data we generate. It's not much. So we thought, wow, if we could go over there and help structure some of this data in order to solve big problems, there's a lot of opportunity, and we can help these countries become sovereign and get off the debt game and get off aid and get off China and everything else that they're doing. Actually, help them. So Africa's huge,
Hmm.
huge. So we work in sub-Saharan Africa in the middle. We don't really work in North Africa and we don't work in South Africa, but just in that middle. And there's about 40 countries there.
Yeah, I've heard something like 43% of the people in Africa don't even have or lack access to 24 hours of electricity on a day-to-day
100, yeah.
basis.
And clean water. It's higher than that. I
Yeah.
mean, unemployment's high, electricity, there's no power. Power goes out all the time. Generators are constantly on, and there's no jobs. So we're trying to create jobs. So wherever we go, we only hire within that country, and we bring people up. And they're very well educated. They usually have masters, speak multiple languages, hard workers, great attitudes. Like we don't hire in the States anymore.
And so, if you don't mind, Jay, walk me through your in your customer sequence. Like when I think about your ideal client profile, are these strictly government agencies, or are there private companies involved? Maybe that's a good place to
So
start.
yeah, so we struggled for the first 5 years to find out what is our sweet spot. And our sweet spot is, look, you need a strong local partner, because me walking in as an American, they're like, get out, right? We're arrogant. We don't know what we're talking about. But walking in with a strong local partner that has the same goal for their country, and we start at the president level, because without the presidents, it's like going to the CEO. Without them saying, yeah, this is important for my country, let's do it, it doesn't trickle down. So we tried to start with ministers at one point in time, and it just didn't work. It just was time consuming, and that person leaves, and then another person comes in. With the president, at least you have some stability. So we walk in and we look to say, what is the problem you wanted to solve? And the first country came to us of saying, look, we needed to solve the livestock thing. We're not in livestock. We're like, okay, cool, we'll do that. Next one came and said, hey, can you do food security, supply chain? We're like, yeah, sure. Data. And then taxation, like, we're not IRS expert. We don't know anything about tax, but we do now. So again, we look at it as data. So we start at the president level. We ask them, what is it, the problem we're trying to solve? And when we look at Africa, um, people invest in three things. They don't put money in a 401k. They don't put it in the bank. They don't, they buy properties for cash. Mortgage rates are 30%, so they're not taking out mortgages. They're buying it for cash. They invest in agriculture and they invest in livestock. So that's where we've stayed, because that is where the money, you follow the money, and that is where the biggest opportunity is.
Got it. It's very interesting. So, and talk to me about the methods that you're using to be able to go after these prospects and start a conversation. Are
Yeah.
you
So
using
again, as
technology
long
for that?
no, we have local partners, right? So our
Okay.
local partners, and they're very well established within those countries. And we have case studies, and we have, your standard sales presentations, etc. But look at across Africa, actually across Asia, across all emerging countries, taxation is usually 1 to 2% compliant. Pretty easy to like show that we get a return very
Hmm.
quickly just by doing traceability and transparency of data and of people. The ROI and the sales process is easy, because then they can go see another country.
Hmm.
They don't need to like think about it. We have case studies. They always like to go visit. We have West Africa, East Africa, and wherever geographically you are, that's where you can go visit a working product.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine once you get enough case studies under your belt, the sales process becomes pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ROI is easy to show. The data that we get in, I mean, it's all kinds of data. Sometimes it's good data. Sometimes it's a crumpled bunch of paper on a ground. Sometimes there's no data. We had to create it. In one country, we had to go in and actually create all the data because they didn't have it. We put in Google Street Maps. We put in building an imagery analysis. We tied it to, it was a feat. So we went from the most sophisticated text agent to the least sophisticated. But each place, it's all data. It's just where you generate it from and how you get it in the pipe.
And it makes me think about like when you evaluate or assess good data, bad data, or insufficient data, how do you decipher between good data and bad data to know that you're making good decisions?
Yeah. So our data matching process is phenomenal and it is big. You can imagine taking 12 different ministries of data into a pipe. None of them use the same ID. They don't have the social security number like we do. They have a national ID, but most ministries don't use that. They have their own ID, and then they use, like, if you go in and Jim, you're going in and say, "Hey, I'm gonna buy another property," and you go to local government, they're going to give you an ID for that. If you go buy a second property, they're going to give you a different ID. They're not going to tie it to the first one, and it may be your first name, last name. It may be your last name, first name. It may be misspelled, right? So that's the kind of data intricacy we deal with. So we have to pull it in. We create a digital ID for
Hmm.
everything. And one of the countries that we're working with, they're like, "Oh my God, this would totally solve our problems. You're creating a unique ID number." I'm like, "Yeah, we can tie it to your national ID, which it should be, but we're happy to do that." We're solving a problem without knowing we were solving a problem. So data is tough. So we do a fuzzy matching. We pull in phone numbers. We pull in email addresses. They don't have physical addresses. We'll provide it with a GPS coordinate. Like, we have to pull a lot of stuff in. It's the hardest part of the our process is the data matching.
Yeah, and
And
then
there's technology out there that does a really good job, but man, some of this is tough.
yeah, no, I can imagine. And tell me if I'm off base here, but I imagine once you know that you are working with a good data set with high integrity, there becomes a secondary challenge of then securing the integrity of that data to make sure that it's never manipulated, right? For
Right.
the
Yeah.
wrongful purposes.
Yeah, and we do that through databases. That's not
Hmm.
hard, and when we need to, we can put the blockchain in. But that's the easy part.
Okay.
That's easy to data integrity. To maintain that is easy for us. Data
Okay.
matching, that's a tough one.
All right. So jumping back to looking into the future, you had mentioned increase case studies, happy client success, and being able to maybe expand the jurisdictions or the countries that you're in could be a possibility. Are you looking for a percentage of year over year growth that the company is targeting?
No, we don't
No.
do that.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Got it.
No, we look at what other sectors we can go in.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been in agriculture, we've been in livestock, we've been in people and taxation. The next one we're looking at is climate. It's a $2 trillion industry. There are a lot of data silos, so we know it's broken. And so what we love is big data, disparate data silos that we can pull that together. So we're working on that now. That's our next sector. We look at more sectors than we do year over year. We're not your traditional, let's do a 5-year plan. It doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
Africa is unpredictable.
Yeah.
Something could go very quickly or it's going to go very slowly. I cannot guess at this point. I wish I could. So we've thrown the traditional, US thinking out the door, and we're really here to make impact.
And digging into the climate sector a little bit further, what do you see as the biggest challenge within the climate sector that's going to help you really penetrate that and and develop and achieve your goals there?
Yeah, so a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of data that's fast and loose. So I can tell you in Africa, they hold the Congo Basin, which is the second lung of of the world, next to the Amazon. So together, those two areas between the Amazon and the Congo Basin, that makes up about 30% of our global oxygen production. The Congo Basin spreads throughout sub-Saharan Africa, and it is being clear cutted for charcoal, illegal logging, mining for all our rare earth minerals that we need in our all our devices and cars. So that's valuable. Those are valuable assets. And the countries don't really know much about the climate, about carbon credits and climate. So we're helping them organize that because these project developers have been going in their countries and starting a climate project that yields X amount of dollars. And I can give you an example in Zimbabwe. The flagship carbon credit project was called Kariba. It's a 1 million hectare forest, and the project developer's goal was to protect that forest. Fast forward 12 years, article came out in Bloomberg, Guardian, and a bunch of other newspapers that said, "Hey, 90% of those carbon credits that were issued were fraudulent. They were worthless. That did not absorb that much carbon." So that money, there was the climate investor made $100 million off that 1 million hectare forest. The local community was supposed to get 30 million, 30%. So there was no traceability to see that that $100 million, first off, that it did what the carbon credits actually did what they said they were going to do, that the money actually flowed down to the locals, and that that the country even knew what was going on. So when I went out there, I said, "There's no way a community got $30 million. I'll be shocked." So I went out there, flew out there, met with the chief. You could clearly see maybe $30 went there. It wasn't much there. And over 12 years, I'd ask him, I said, "Sir, what did you get?" He goes, "I got a bag of seed and a bag of soil." I said, "You're supposed to get $30 million worth of benefits, schools, infrastructure, water, energy, internet, all that." He should have gotten that. He got nothing. So he didn't know. So then I went to the government and asked them. And I said, "This climate company made $100 million off your forest." And they're like, "What? Are you kidding me?" Like they didn't know. So I'm like, how is this $2 trillion industry has been going on for 20, 30 years and no one knows about this? It was amazing to me.
Hmm.
So it was because there was all these different data silos and nobody was working together and the ecosystem's broken. So what we're trying to do now is pull that all together so that a country can see who's doing what in their country, and then we can trace the money. Think of it as an audit function that makes sure that the money goes all the way down. It's supposed to go to the local communities that are protecting whatever they're protecting. And without that, they're going to continue to clear cut because they need jobs. There's no sustainable income in these villages. So we're trying to change that, trying to help that out.
It's a fantastic mission, and it makes me think, Jay, if you can fix sort of the source of the problem as you're doing to make sure that the right entities and communities and agencies receive the right amount of money at the get-go, then they can reinvest these funds or reallocate these funds into the infrastructure of the communities that are going to be at the core for them to be productive in their day-to-day society, whether that's water, sewer, energy, go on down the line. Am I tracking you correctly?
Yep, 100%, 100%. And then they truly do protect the Congo Basin rather than cut it down. The same thing's happening in the Amazon. Just the destruction. I was there 40 years ago. The place I went 40 years ago doesn't even exist now in the Amazon. So it's just we don't get that back. You don't get a redo. You don't get that land back. You don't get the trees back. You don't get the carbon sink back. You don't have it back.
Have you heard of these companies that are now doing mini grids, where they're
Hmm.
going into rural locations, rural countries, where my understanding is that it's like a supply demand sort of a problem with the energy grid, where the demand is not high enough for the investment of private and public companies to build these energy producing facilities, because it's going to take a lot of time and take a lot of money. My understanding is that you generally have to overbuild the infrastructure of the energy grid to be sustainable over decades, right? Whereas maybe at that point there's such a small level of demand, it becomes the incentives aren't properly aligned for the private investment to build these things to begin with. So I've heard that these some private companies are basically taking data centers out to rural locations using renewable forms of energy generation, and then being able to automate the supply demand issues. Whereas like whenever there's not demand from the community, then they can shift that demand towards data that these data centers that can be leveraged anywhere, wherever the energy is the cheapest, and then therefore make it much profitable and attract the financiers. Does this get involved with your work at all?
It does not. In Africa, they don't have data centers because they don't have enough power to run a data center. It is happening here in the States, and data centers. Look, with the growth of AI, the power consumption is going through it's predicted to go through the roof. So what they're trying to do right now, all the big guys are buying up farmland and putting data centers out there in the rural areas. And yes, they're doing power because they have to power it because they're doing microgrids, or they're doing looking at nuclear options. They're looking at everything because the power they need will shut down the whole city. The other thing that they're looking at is water because they need the water to cool it. So they're buying up water rights. So it's not a good thing what's happening out in the rural communities when you go out in the US, because you're having these data centers, you're having sometimes independent power, sometimes they're sucking the power out of the city, but the water is more what I'm looking at because there's only so much water and they need that water to cool it down. So there's a bunch of data center alliances being formed that are trying to put this on the radar and really trying to figure this out. But it is going to be a big problem with AI as it continues to grow, because what do you need? You need data centers
Yeah.
to
And
power it.
so
So
when it becomes a problem with the water, is that strictly for like on the nuclear side, or is it also with hydro
it's with
plants,
everything. So when you have
turbines?
a data center, you need the water for coolant. You have to
Hmm.
cool it down. So that is one of the problems that these data centers, as they're going out, is buying water rights.
I see.
I worry about that. I worry about that with the big guys, with these rural villages, or not villages, rural cities. This is
And
not happening in Africa. There's
yeah,
there are very little data centers, very little.
do you foresee that it could be an issue in the future, or is that too far out?
For Africa or
Yeah.
US, it's a problem now.
Yeah.
For Africa, what we're seeing, I think it will be a good issue to have, because they have to put in power then, right? It forces the power, it forces stable electricity. And no one has forced nothing, no other industry has forced that.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm telling you, when you go, like if you go to Zambia, or you go to South Africa, man, the power, you constantly hear generators on.
Hmm.
In hotels, in restaurants, you name it, because there's just unstable power. So I think it will be a good problem to have for Africa,
Yeah.
because it will force the issue of stable power.
Yeah, and it would make sense to me that you can't really expect to increase productivity without having 24 access to power.
Right, right, right. So
Got it. All right, let's talk about content marketing and how that relates to your mission and your business. You know, what role does content play in the growth strategy and brand awareness and in market, out of market buyers? What are your thoughts there?
so we don't follow anything traditional in the US. We do have social media. We do put out marketing. That team is run out of Africa. I personally make sure that my LinkedIn it's my voice. It's me saying that because I'm a little bit snarkier and a little bit more in people's faces, and calling out the issues. That's my upbringing coming from Texas and in the oil and gas industry background. So I want that voice to be represented in my LinkedIn. So no one manages that. All the rest is social media, and we don't find it that effective. I mean, in the beginning, we went through all the awards and did that for the first couple years because it meant something. It doesn't really mean anything. And I don't find marketing, I get annoyed with marketing now, like when I see it scrolling through whatever I'm scrolling through. So where we work, it's more, oh, that country has it, oh, we want it. So it's more internally within Africa and among the meetings that they're having. Whether it's in African Union or it's at a tax conference, it's more that's more important to us than traditional marketing.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I could see how much effectiveness would it really have on, predominant social media sites as it relates to who you're targeting out in Africa. It's just probably not a lot of the
Doesn't matter.
channels that they're paying any attention to.
No, I will tell you LinkedIn, Facebook, WhatsApp, those are the channels. Those are Instagram, no. The rest of the stuff, no. Google, all that stuff, no. But Facebook and LinkedIn are kind of the biggest channels they use. The other thing we did because there was, you get a lot of bad press when you go into a country as well because you're new and you're going to increase taxes. We're not increasing taxes, we're just having tax compliance. And by the way, that's not our laws and our policies. All we're doing is putting in a technology to enforce their laws and their policies. So we were getting a lot of bad press, a lot. And so what we did is we actually started a news channel like CNN, but for whatever sector we're in. And so that runs 24/7. And now the news channels are picking up our articles. So we flipped it so that we were like trying to tell the true story and not the bashing story that we were getting.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Gotcha. And so, do you see hidden costs for companies out there that are not updating their CRM and keeping up with the tech stack?
Um, yeah, I think AI is what everyone needs to be paying attention to right now. The
Hmm.
workflow capability that's coming out is going to be great. I think it's awesome. I think people are feared that they're going to lose their job. But if you're going to lose your job, that means you weren't working efficiently, I think, in the beginning. So I think people have to embrace it and use it. And we encourage everyone in our whole team to use AI. We're constantly training people on it because we don't want to grow in staff. We want to grow in tech. And a good tech company doesn't need a lot of humans. If you need a lot of humans, you got the wrong model. If you're a tech company, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So I think as a CEO, I'm embracing AI. Anything it can do for me and make my life easier, be done. Because so then that can help me think more strategically and really focus on the stuff I need to focus on rather than the minutia.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
And
AI's been around a long time, man. This is nothing new. My
hmm.
first company as a CEO in early 2000s was an AI company. And I turned it around and I sold it to United Health. It's still they still use it today. So AI has been around a while. And we had the same fear base back in the early 2000s. Can you imagine?
Hmm.
Everyone's like, oh, I'm gonna lose my job. I'm gonna lose my job. It's like, no, we're gonna make you more efficient in what you're doing in healthcare. And we finally, convinced people that you didn't need to do all this manual work, it could do it for you. And once they understood that they would be elevated and to think through more of the strategic problems rather than do this manual work, we finally got there. But it was a giant push for sales and
Yeah,
marketing then.
I always found that interesting with any technology going back to the beginning as old as time. You have that certain percentage of people that very clearly fear what's coming and do anything in their power to create
Mhm.
uncertainty and doubt in the new technology. It reminds me of, I think when the automobile was being first commercialized, probably by Ford, they created that law where you had to have somebody standing out 20 feet in front of the horse and buggy, two people on both sides waving the thing that was going 10 miles an hour down the street to make sure nobody walked in front of the carriage and got ran over by the horse. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fun things you can look at and learn from, really, with history and
Right.
technology there.
Yeah. So those that don't embrace tech and AI, and I have people that do not. Like I had a marketing person that just wouldn't do it. Like was like, nah, not going to use it. And I'm like, oh my God, you're not the right person. Your
Yeah.
fear, your fear is not in the right. There's something else there wrong. Something's not right. Because if you don't want to embrace tech, I don't want you in my circle.
Yeah, I guess it ultimately just comes down to whether you're fixed or growth minded, right?
Yeah. 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 Are you stuck in the 80s or are you getting ready to go in, 2030? Your choice.
Yeah,
We like the 2030 thinkers.
right. And so that kind of brings me to the next question from your perspective. What's the biggest risk in relying on legacy systems for infrastructure scale projects?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, vendors go under, right? All the time. And we actually had a system we were using, and it was a great system. And then they sunsetted it. Then we had to find another system. So that's not always fun, but that's part of the business, right? So you want to look. There's always new up and comings, but you also want to make sure that new up and coming company is sustainable. It's going to be
Hmm.
around. But that's with anything you use, right? You're gonna make sure, like, is this company going to survive? Is it well funded? Does it have a good core technology? Is it going to grow? Is it cost efficient? Is it going to be out of our price range one day? Those are the things we always consider.
And what about competition, Jay? When is that something that you think about? Is what does the competitive landscape look like, or is it not there?
There's no one. We can't find anyone. We try because you always have that SWOT analysis that you want to
Yeah.
show your board. And I'm like, guys, I am trying to come up with. They've even sent our proposals to big companies, and they're like, yeah, we can't do it for the price they're doing it for. So we have yet to come up with anyone. When there's an RFP, you know, a bunch of people, a closet respond, but they don't know what they're doing. They don't have the history. So we're in a niche right now. We'll continue to be that way. We do look for strategic partners that can add. We always look at: do we want to acquire a company? Do we want to build this? Or do we want to merge? Right. So we're always constantly looking at, like, when we go and find a good company, like, can we fit that in our suite, or is it something we could build? Or we always are looking at how do we grow and what's the best growth path. But right now I haven't found anybody. If you know of anybody, let me know.
Okay.
Love to talk to them.
Yeah. And so when you look forward and think about some of the areas that you're looking to get more traction in, is there any specific tool as it relates to AI clients, automation, technology, or optimization of your infrastructure that you're looking for to solve a specific problem that you're not seeing yet exist?
um Yeah, our data matching, we're always looking to improve that. Like, how can we do that faster? And then the predictive analytics, we're constantly putting in new AI, just to refine it and make it quicker and more predictable on our results, that when we spit out results. But the data match, I'll tell you, that takes the longest for us, and we're always looking for a new solution. We haven't found anything spectacular, but we're all constantly looking for it.
Got it. Very good. Well, Jay, listen, this was an incredible conversation. Were there any pressing thoughts on your mind that you wanted to highlight, or anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to bring up?
No, I would say, look, there's a lot of people struggling for the same customer base in the States. Think outside the United States. It's a big world out there. 7 billion people, 8 billion people. Don't be afraid to go outside comfort zones. And even my board members are like, you could never work in the States. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Where could we go? And the government says, yeah, sure, have our data. Like it would never happen here. So when you're looking at your own company, what else could you do on a global level? And then we always look at what impact are we making? Yeah, you can worry about bottom line and top line, all that stuff, but really, what is the impact you're making? And is it something you're proud of and it's a legacy you want to leave behind? And so we focus a little differently, and Africa forced us to focus that way, but it was a blessing to do so.
It's a good message, Jay. And one last quick question here is, when you think about your mission and what's motivating you on a day to day, what is it? Because you've accomplished so much, and you've had an amazing career. What is it now that really is continuing to inspire you?
Yeah, so good question. I had this conversation yesterday because I was like, wow, there's more to do. And so what we're working on now is how do we take 600 million people out of the village life where they have no water, no clean water, little food, no electricity, no internet, no jobs. How do we look at that population and put sustainable economies in place for them that and maintain their village quietness that they like? How do we solve for that? And that is a legacy we want to like the company, all the employees, we're all very mission driven, and we want to be able to solve and help these people not just survive. They've been surviving a long time, but help them thrive. So we're putting a model together for that right now. So that's on the side of our tech company, but it's something we have the power to do, and we're putting our money where our mouth is.
Very good. Well, for the listeners, if you're wrestling with inefficiencies or legacy CRM slowing your teams down, take notes from what we talked about today. You can learn more about Jay's work at ripplenami.com. Is there anywhere else specifically, Jay, that you would like to hand off?
No, that's great. Ripplenami.com is fine.
Okay. And if you're curious about how Trust AI Partners helps companies modernize, reach out for a free consultation. We'll see you on the next one.